He's asking why Gen Z wants more of a work-life balance than Gen X and millennials did.
Oh, I can tell you exactly why Gen Z is not going above and beyond anymore, and it's because they don't believe the lie. Because they watched the lie fail their parents and their grandparents. And their belief in the lie has actually destroyed their families and left them on the altar of corporate America. Here's what I mean by that. The first generation of corporate America, which would be their grandparents, had primarily men working. And these men, Gen Z's grandparents, were told if you come in early and you stay late, maybe you can too move up a few levels. There's only limited space once you start to go up, so you're competing with other people, so that means you have to work even harder. This means this put more stress on the primary caregiver at home, who was likely working in some capacity, was probably a teacher or something else that gave her more flexibility in order to be able to manage her home and her children as well as a job. This led to a lot of unhappy marriages, a whole lot of broken promises, both from employers and from parents being like, well, when I get home, I can help. And they never do because they're tired. The other spouse is like, well, I'm tired too. Right around the same time, all of a sudden, the unpaid labor of motherhood was touted as nothing. It was pitied. You're just a stay-at-home mom. There was a time that was actually a revered position. And these overworked primary caregivers were shamed because they weren't supporting their husbands trying to work extra hard. He's working for the family. And things fell apart. Move on to the next generation where women are trying to push into corporate America to make sure we are equally represented. And it was pretty quickly found out that corporate America was built around secondary caregivers and not primary caregivers. If you're a primary caregiver who's giving your all to corporate America, you still have to go in at the right time and leave at the right time because you have other things that you need to do outside of that place. Which meant that all the men who could come in early and stay late were getting the promotions because they were shown as going the extra mile, and women were like, well, if you would do that, you could, but they didn't realize that they didn't have another caregiver to be able to do all of those things. This meant that secondary caregivers and people without children were able to go the extra mile and give a whole lot of unpaid labor to the company when the primary caregivers were not able to. Which means the primary caregivers who were in corporate America got even more burnt out because they felt like they were doing absolutely everything, and the secondary caregiver was probably still getting the promotion. So Gen Z was watching that play out in their parents' lives and watched what played out in their grandparents' lives, and they were like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put in a whole bunch of unpaid labor just to be able to hopefully get something at some point, because unpaid labor is technically just stealing from your employees. The theft of a person's time in unpaid labor, requiring them to do all of these extra things, dangling a carrot of hopefully someday you too can get a promotion, is just, it's stealing. It's stealing with very little promise, where with an internship, you know what you're walking into. So if it is unpaid, at least you know what's at the end. With unpaid labor, you're just hoping. It's leading to a horrible work-life balance. It's leading to people being absolutely burnt out. It's even leading to this stupid idea about quiet quitting, which is literally just doing the job that you were hired for. See, not everybody wants to get to the next level. Not everybody wants to be in the CEO's office. Not everybody wants to be there. And most people are promoted to the point of incompetency, which means they keep working their way through the ranks until they finally hit a place where they're just not able to get past because they're incompetent in that role. They don't have the gifting to fill that role. However, they were promoted there because they did all the right things. There's a stigma in stepping back into a different role. That stigma looks like you're quitting or you're failing, but in reality, you're just stepping back to where your gifting is supposed to be, and that's a good thing. So the reason that you're not getting all of this extra mile stuff out of Gen Z is because they're not willing to put their lives on the altar of corporate. It is not worth the sacrifice. It is not worth the payoff. They are smart in realizing not everybody is destined for the CEO's office. They are smart in realizing they can sharpen other aspects of their skills if they just give the job what they need to. They don't own the company, and most of them are okay with that. It's not about lack of ambition, it's about knowing what you want. I work in tech, and I see it day in and day out. And until the corporate world understands that they were built for secondary caregivers, and primary caregivers are always going to struggle thriving there because they have additional responsibilities outside of there, only then will we be able to see true equity in the corporate world. We shouldn't be asking people to sacrifice their time with their families in order to work a job that's going to forget about them if they quit. If I walk out of my role, they replace me. But if I work myself to death and die at an early age because I have stressed myself out trying to get to the next level, my family will miss me. That leaves an unreplaceable hole, and Gen Z doesn't want to participate in that. And I say, good for them.